Ernie, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. We welcome everybody to the Morgan City Council work meeting. We'll excuse Tony. He won't be with us tonight. And continue to say some prayers. Yeah, the update, he's on his way down again. His blood pressure is not working.
So he came home last night.
He came home twice and now he's going to a different hospital,
He's going back to the hospital tonight.
but a different one.
Is that Tony?
So we'll keep our,
Ernie needs to unmute.
Is that Tony?
unmute Ernie.
I am. I'm not muted.
Let us hurry and work on it.
Is that Tony that's ill?
Let's go to. Can we hear ourselves on the speaker? Hello? Yeah, we can hear ourselves.
Yeah.
Speaker. Microphone. Speaker.
I think it's on your end, Ernie.
Okay,
Maybe try going out and coming back in. Or push the mute again and
It'd have to be or we wouldn't be there. You know what I mean?
okay, can you hear me now? Nothing?
can't hear you still. We'll look for a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or we have something to ask you.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll resolve. And it looks like we've got somebody else joining us. Welcome, whomever you are.
That's my son-in-law.
That's one of his family he's saying.
Oh, okay, okay.
Perfect.
I'm glad you can read lips.
I read lips. Work with middle school kids every day. That's easy.
Wow.
So let's get started. Item 1. Morgan City Code 8.02.00. Service outside city water, and section 8.04.000. Service outside city sewer. So is there anybody that would like to begin the discussion? First off, is this where I read that petition by Ernie? It's the next one?
Just in the main meeting.
Okay,
Sections of the code, and then I included the ordinance that was adopted in January of 2022, so you could see all the new language.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. The changes would be in the red.
okay, so
Mayor, I can just start since it's kind of.
please, thanks. He's here, Ernie.
Ernie John's
You
here.
see his note? He
Stand up
can't
and
see,
wave at him.
he can't see you on camera. John Wilkinson was gonna be there.
He's a smart guy sitting on the back row.
He's out of camera shot.
What if we dialed Ernie in just via phone, speakerphone?
I'm not that technical.
I mean,
Ernie, do you want to call me and I'll put it on speaker?
you can call me either one.
How you do it?
And just put it, it'll probably pick it up from your mic. It might cause a loop is the only problem. We'll see.
We'll see how that works.
Yeah.
Hello,
Normally you just log in on
Talk to me, Ernie.
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he can hear it.
We have to, so.
Okay. So I'll just start the last,
Maybe we just put it on mute till Ernie's got a spot.
Okay, Ernie, we're gonna put you on mute until we have something to say. It's interfering with us.
Now try it. May not do it.
That better?
so at the last meeting, we had a petition for request for service. We had a lot of discussion and I just wanted to bring back the code. So as a city council, really, it's a discussion about ordinances that we have and whether we like them or not. If there's something that we do like or we don't like, or interpretation or application of the ordinance. So this, administrative side staff, I just really try and do whatever, the ordinance says. And I was just gonna, so we brought the ordinance. So if there's something else, and at the time the ordinance was adopted, I went back and looked at the minutes and it was unanimous, and two, the thing was like, if you can think of any other condition or reason, right, of when we do or when we don't allow service, then nobody had anything at the time, right? So I'm not trying to say this is a closed discussion, but we need to just frame the conversation in a work session so that when we go into the general session and have the discussion with the applicant, that we're square on, what the opportunity or what the decision is. The reason back there behind you.
Just a touch.
So, just to begin with, the staff or administrative perspective is we have building standards, right? So for any new build, the requirements are the same. Don't disagree that, it's available or whatnot, but the reason we determined to have annexation be part of it is so that on a new build, it comes with all of the other requirements, and that process is within the city's jurisdiction, if that makes sense. So within the city, we have development standards. We have property all over the place that has water available right on the front property, vacant land. If you say, I want a building permit, or I want to do a subdivision tomorrow, a minor subdivision, and we say, great, here's all the requirements, right? Here's the road requirement, water, power, sewer, curb gutter, sidewalk, storm drain, planning, fit the zone, the setbacks. All of that is just our standard. That's just how we do development. And the whoever's doing the development pays, or we go through a process where we say this doesn't make sense, but this is the standard. This is who pays for it. The city doesn't come in and put in all of your infrastructure so that you can build, right? So that's inside the city. Outside of the city, that's the problem that we're trying to address is, and Gary just keeps saying like, well, who pays? Well, it's because at the point of development, all of those things should apply, or the city's going to be the one doing it later, right? So should the standard be less if you're outside of the city boundary than it is on the inside? Because we've had a lot of people say, well, I'm not gonna subdivide into 3 lots. That's gonna cost me too much money. Well, or I don't want to build the sidewalk first. I want somebody else to do it. Well, those are all their decision points, but that's how development works. It's how it's worked always. So in this situation, it's like, well, we didn't have that specifically identified in code. So that's why we created the ordinance. It tied it to development. At the point of development, just annex in and we'll take care of the whole thing as part of the city or you know, as development goes, because the other side of that coin is, do we allow entire subdivisions? Do we allow one home? Because we do, so we went back and looked at kind of what I was talking about at the last meeting, is if we have the same issue on every edge of our city. So we have it going this way, we have it on 700 East, all the way to whatever the road's called that goes to our sewers. I don't know, it's a county road, so I don't have to know its name, right? But it's in the county with water service available. If you go up 525, we've got a patchwork of all kinds of property. Now we have current homes that are being serviced, right? A failed water, you know, well goes bad or whatever. But there's all kinds of development potential where water service is available. It's right there in the street. And that's the issue. Or that's kind of the thought process, but that's where the ordinance came from, right? We didn't have it before, but that's kind of the path forward to say, how do we not make this a problem moving forward? Or why would we not have a building standard outside of the city limits and provide one or two services and then surround ourselves with potential or, you know, future issues where it's like, well, now annexation wants to happen, or whoever develops will not be responsible for all the current homes. The city is going to have to go back and be the developer at that point, or put in all of the infrastructure. Does that make sense? That frame of reference that I'm saying, right? Or if we say, well, the other problem is if we say, well, you got improvements on one side of the street, but the other side's county. That also becomes problematic. So as much as possible, that's why we're saying just annex, and then we'll work with the applicant on all those concessions or what's required, what makes sense, what doesn't. But the only way we make those concessions is if it's in our own process. But if we just extend or say, oh, go ahead and it's there, connect, and then go through a county process for your building permit, we have no say on what's left as far as setbacks, road improvements. And it's to our own detriment, because at some point, at a future date, the rest of whatever's there is going to need to be paid for or provided. And that we have a lot of those areas. It's not just, and it's inside the city, just like I said. If we say, okay, we're willing to just say tap the water, but whatever conditions this ordinance says, if it's inside the city, it's more stringent. But we also don't want to say, oh, if you have a 5-acre piece, don't do any road improvements, just tap the water line, get far enough away that you don't need sewer, right? And we don't develop that way. We just have a city standard. Development pays its own way, and those improvements, to, you know, the extent possible, meet city standards. So that's kind of the discussion. That's where the ordinance came from. And that's the thought process leading up to where we're at now. Now, the idea of saying, well, this was before the ordinance is true, but you're grandfathered into the exact same process that we're in now, where we still have to go through, you know, whether we allow it or not, and under what conditions we will. In the past, as far back, nobody else has come up with anything different. Every connection in the recent memory of anybody that I've asked, all of the water that has been provided has been to existing homes. We haven't facilitated development on city infrastructure. At some point it happened, right? At some point we have all of these, but it hasn't been, definitely since I've been here. It's been, and the code recognizes that, right? It says, okay, so existing homes, you know, we'll consider it without annexation. But if you're doing construction or building new, we just haven't in practice, we haven't done that. So there's really, if you're prior to, there's really no such thing as grandfathered into a process that doesn't exist or guarantee, right? There's nothing beforehand that said, if you apply, you get it anytime you want. There's no process for that. So there was an application at the same time. This project was never mentioned when the ordinance wasn't developed with any particular applicant in mind. It was after we provided service to Lawrence's, and we're like, well, why did we do that? And we're may or may not be comfortable with it, but we had another applicant prior to that ordinance down the road. It went through the process and it was denied. Service was denied. So if you want to go prior to this ordinance and say, oh, it's grandfathered in, our track history is, yeah, we had one applicant at the same time frame who was also denied, but given the opportunity to annex, right? So it's not that we're saying you just say, you can't have service. We just decided that it's the best practice to say, yeah, with annexation, you make a request, and then in that process, we have the ability to negotiate, on whatever makes sense, but we still have that development. So I explained that kind of at the last meeting. We've told Ernie a lot of the requirements, but we cannot predetermine what we're willing to flex on without either an annexation request during annexation or a building request. And then that's what's also unique is it's an entire subdivision. It's not just one applicant. That's a complicating factor. So that's kind of the decision before the council. This is a great time to maybe, talk through if there's something in the ordinance that you like or you don't like, provisions. I understand, I think I got the feedback. Well, we don't want to extend the water lines. We don't want to go clear to Porterville, or we don't want to just keep growing that. But that's what the ordinance does, is it just makes you vested, follow the same city development standards as everybody else. And it's not a denial. It's just saying that's our opportunity to work through those specific issues on what city standards are met, if that makes sense. So you have still you have the petition before you, which I can appreciate. Everybody's tried to help figure out a way, to facilitate that, that request. But really the question is in my mind, in the application, are we at a point where we're willing to violate our own ordinance, or craft a new ordinance, which seems to me like a lot of work when the answer's right there. It's just annexation, and we have representation from, it looks like the subdivision, and that's all been talked about as well. Like, it doesn't all have to be done tomorrow. We can do a lot by agreement. Delayed agreements, payback agreements. There's all kinds of things that we can do, but it's nothing that we can really decide on this request for service, if that. So I think I've said pretty much kind of reframing or putting the question back to where it's a council decision, because I am passionate about that. Mayor said, Ty's job is to protect the interest of the city, but my job is to carry out your wishes, right? In the form of, here's what we have on the books. And that's how I see that being applied. And so if I'm wrong, that's something that's totally on the table, interpretation of the ordinance. But I do think that consistency matters, and moving forward, that unless there's a better idea out there, we have a lot of developable area in the county with current water service. And I don't know under what conditions we say at what point yes and what point no, unless we codify that. Because at some point, all those improvements are gonna need to be made. So that's what I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Does council have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear from both Ernie and John before, in wondering, Ernie, if, I mean, we've all had a month to try to think through this, and I'd like to hear John's comments too. See if there's anything that, I mean, you guys are looking at that would say, here's a way that might make it work or whatever before, before we start any discussion.
Can you hear? Can you hear me now? No?
Are you on your phone, Ernie?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, well, let me just throw something out there. The easiest method. The easiest method would be annexation. But with that annexation would. Okay. I had to mute you, Ernie. Hopefully you can still hear us. We're getting a lot of playback. Yeah. So with annexation on this property, it's awkward that we're just gonna annex one side of the street. Right? Did you state that? Just one side of the street would be annexed into the city where the other one isn't.
Well, one side is already like that. So eventually, the idea is that both sides clear to the end would be annexed. So it's not a huge problem. It's just whether at the point of development, who's going to provide the rest of the city standards moving forward.
Right. So what I'm saying with this particular piece of property, there's 5 lots. That side would be possible to annex in without affecting the other side.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's didn't come across that way. So the other side of the street, which will probably be a cold day before that ever annexes into the city, where Dan and Stu and the Polaris shop is and Lauders. That's what was confusing to me is, so we annex one side in, where does that, all the road width, the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, all of that stuff come into play with that one side? John? Yes.
I believe on that side of the road where shop is.
So let's get him on mic.
I believe it's city up to Stewart's place.
Yes, in the field.
So these 2 lots are across the street from where it already is city, the 2 lots.
Right.
So if you annex in, if it's the 2 lots, the city is on the other side. So you kind of square it up.
The problem is that we can't annex 2 of the lots. It has to be the entire subdivision.
So it's all or nothing.
Because it's been a subdivision. So because it's been subdivided and lots have been sold, then we can't treat one, because that's one of the things we explored originally was that
Right.
maybe you can just abandon the subdivision and then we'll just deal with Ernie. But because lots have already been sold, it stays a subdivision and it's an all or none.
So if we
The actual,
both lots and do away with them, then it's only 2 lots.
I don't know if you can do away with the subdivision at this point.
And that would be a county thing.
That's a county thing, yeah.
They could. It'd be up to the county, but that's up.
We explored
that's
that.
potential.
We talked about it.
Look at that,
Just making that line straight.
yeah,
Yep.
okay. So.
That's an option, or if it stays as a subdivision and you request, then we can work with some agreement that says improvements only gonna come to this part and the rest is gonna be at whatever you guys agree to at whoever's expense. But for the city, we would just, it would already be in the city. We would recognize that agreement. And then at the point of development, whatever's recorded on that property would just come back into play. And so then the burden's not on Ernie to take it to the very end of the subdivision, or do you want those improvements? But we could, you know, we can handle that. But yes, to the extent possible, you want it to be both sides, but there are times when it's one side or the other. That's not a
what I
deal
wanted to
breaker.
make clear.
Well, but that's not a deal breaker. It's just, it means that during that annexation request is when you determine all of the agreements that are in place so that the city has a guarantee. Because now it's in the city, at what point those improvements are going to be made. So whatever cold day that is, we've set that path up so that it's not a gap or a hole that the city has to come back in and fill and make right at some other point. Development had taken care of that. And we've talked about that. That's totally up to, you know, we're probably, you know, the staff would work with them to bring the council a proposal with agreements intact that said, you know, let's just do up to this point now. But that's another option. It's just for the applicant to decide if they want to go try and abandon the subdivision. And then, you know, then we just be talking to Ernie on those two lots. But the same question would be, you know, our ordinance or process says, yeah, we'll provide services, but annexation, you know, then sewer's part of that. Land use, you pick a zone, you pick a density, all the setbacks get reviewed. All of that happens within the city discussion instead of just being left to whatever.
So would that affect Cam Sargent's piece that's in the county?
Not directly, but would have to just get into that. I think it's already in the city. I'm not sure.
Half of it.
Half of it.
Well, in the middle, it's kind of in the middle of his shed
Yeah.
is the city.
So really the only thing that would happen is right of way would be needed to be recorded. So it would be a city street that he fronted, but unless they're not building anything, it wouldn't, it's not held up one way or the other by him. We're not creating an island because the other side's still in the city. So you have to have contiguous property and not create an island, or you can't leapfrog city boundaries.
Yeah, so if he wasn't required, we'd have a slight zigzag right there.
Well, other than whatever
Como,
the right of way would get recorded on their property. So, but those are all different questions, right? So we're back to having an administrative, like, how does this work?
Jeff.
Discussion that, we also can't pre-decide. These are just potential solutions.
So
Hey, Ernie.
you have two parcels of property there. You have 100 feet basically of Cam Sargent's and 100 feet of Como before you get to our property. So there's two little slices out of there, Cam and Como. Just so you're aware of that. It's not just one person.
Yeah. We're gonna mute you, Ernie. Okay, well, I'm just sorry to stimulate a discussion, but I'm just gonna turn this over to the council as far as their experiences with it. I know on 525 North that it's a mess as far as the zigzags in the city and like you said, Ty, it's almost like, well, I'm not in the city, but I expect you to deliver everything.
And that's really fine, other than at some point when someone tries to build something, they're gonna be having this exact conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's why I mentioned earlier that the easiest way, the easiest route for this would be annexation. If John can get that subdivision dissolved, it'll make things simpler.
Well, so for us, it's the same process, other than we just deal with Ernie directly without any other agreements. If it's easier for the applicant to make agreements with the other lot owners in that subdivision, I have no idea. So I can't say what's easier or not, but to us, it's the same process. It would be a little easier just to deal with Ernie if they abandon that subdivision. But depending on what the county process to do that is, I can't say that that's necessarily easier for the applicant. I don't know that.
Okay.
So,
Ernie, do you have any more enlightenment, if you will, on, again, after a month on your approach? Any thoughts there?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, seems like we got an echo.
This is gonna work.
Well, we've got a little bit of an echo, so Denise can get it recorded as well.
So the four of you, the four city councilmen in there that you first heard about this last month. But this process was started, we're coming up on 2 years ago. Okay, and just so you don't think I'm out in left field about this, I want to explain a little bit differently, because I agree with what Ty said, consistency matters. So when I looked into purchasing this property, you had just given, Terry Lawrence had just hooked up to city water. So you went through a process to give lot number 5 water. So that's why I thought this could happen. It's not like I'm not trying to come out of the blue here on something, but you gave water to lot number 5. I went to the city. The city gave me an application. There was an application that I filled out. Then we started to have a meeting. We got together and have a meeting, and the annexation part was brought up. There is no ordinance in place. You did not have an ordinance in place when we started this process. In fact, I don't know the exact date, but I almost think it's about 8 months. Okay, so somewhere you also went through a process where you gave water to the pickleball court for the county. I don't know what kind of process you went through. You also went through a process that you gave a lot of water to my next door neighbor, Como. Now, I wasn't in on any of those meetings, and I've sat somewhat in your position on the planning commission, so I understand you're judging from whatever time is there, but please don't think that I'm out in left field. There was a process that we went through here, and you know, now it's totally different. Now, a year and a half later, there's an ordinance in place. Yes, John and Matt came in, and that got denied. But just before John and Matt, a year, whatever it was, in fact, they filled out their application when I did too, and it was on the tails of Terry Lawrence. So it's not like it hasn't been done. It's not like you created something new, or something new was created. It was being done, and that's why I was in the position that I was in. I agreed with Ty that gosh, if we could get this annexation going, maybe we could make it work easier. And I'm good with that, to the point of even working on putting what I need to put in on my side of the street, but I don't feel like I can be held accountable for Como or Cam Sargent. Putting in, I mean, running the sewer, yeah, I'd have to pay for running the sewer, but road design for those other two properties is something, I mean, it's gonna be expensive enough for my two on my side of the road. But, so that's why I got back to look, this annexation part is you're making it extremely difficult. And so I thought, well, I'll just go back to my initial petition, which was filed 6 or 8 months before any ordinance came into place. And I think, I don't know when you gave final permission to Como, but I do remember seeing it in the paper like last year. You've been working on that with Como as well, and I understand that that's in some regard a plus for the city, because you're hooking the water up. So, but it seems kind of like I'm just right in the middle. I'm right there in the middle, and everybody around me has city water. So I'd like you to look at the map that way. Put your hand on the table, and everything around you has it, but right there in the middle of the table doesn't. So that's kind of why, that's where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be difficult. And, but it is pretty frustrating from my standpoint. So whatever decision you have to make tonight, I guess you have to make it. But this has been a long time coming. This is just not the last month or two. Like I say, when I filled out the petition, when I filed everything, that was past practice. That's what was going on. That's why I did it. I wouldn't have bought a building lot that I knew I would have had to subdivide. That I don't have those kind of coffers, but difficult decisions you have to make. So that's what I wanted to explain to you. Maybe John can help answer some of those questions. It's difficult to talk this way.
John, any more to add to that?
Turn your green. All right. I came to that first meeting that he was talking about when we first approached the city on those lots. He was gonna buy them. And at the time, there seemed to be a pathway. Look, I realize you have to pay. We realized that, but there seemed to be a pathway for that to happen. And the question was raised about the road, which Wilkinson Construction actually paved and chipped on our own years before for the city up past our gate. So we kind of met part of those things and they agreed. So I thought there was going to be a pathway. And then when the ordinance was passed, you know, that even then, if the 2 lots could be annexed, then there's a pathway to make this work. But to say we have to go clear up the road, you know, it seems to be, that's a real sticking point now at this point, you know. And so does that make the 2 lots unbuildable for the city and to hook up? Do we go to the county? And what are we going to do when the health department makes us hook up to existing? So there's some real concerns here. But what are the ordinances? If it's annexed, what do we need to do? I guess I don't even know that. What we need to do to make it work. We certainly don't do both sides of the road.
Maybe,
So if you just annex to 2 lots, Ernie's, he would just do in front of his 2 lots.
But I'd say this too,
according to what we can do, if those, let's just say for an example, those two lots were annexed in. Okay, we annex those two lots. Then if we annex them in, then according to our standards and the Ty's point, we can actually start negotiating with what we're gonna do and what we can accept there. A perfect example is down on my piece that I developed. There's no sidewalk there and there's no curb and gutter because it didn't make sense to have that curb and sidewalk because there's nothing in a long ways away from that. But during that planning stage, the water meters are set to where they would be set back from a sidewalk. The sidewalk is planned to be there. And part of the agreement that's on my development is down the road in a cold day, whenever that happens, we send sidewalk down Island Road. If it's on that side of the street, then I would have to pay for that sidewalk. And that's part of the agreement that's attached onto that property because, and so in these situations, like what we're looking at with Ernie, if we did annex just those two lots, then if they're annexed into the city, then we have the ability to say, okay, it doesn't make sense to put in curb and gutter. It does not make sense to put in a sidewalk there because there's not one on that side of the road for a long ways. We can make those things, attach it onto the property. If down the road, cold day comes, then yes, he would be responsible for doing that. But I mean, none of us can see into the future to see how far that would be. Am I wrong in that, Ty? That's pretty much how that would operate and work.
And you know, Eric, just in the last year, we allowed the Covilles to build without putting in a sidewalk, but it's part of the building lot or part of the recording, it runs with the
Correct.
land that will have to be done at the proper time. So what you're saying is we can delay.
We can delay those,
That,
but we have to have that
that's
in our ability to say, yes, we can make those concessions, but it has to be, according to this point, it has to be in the city for us to make those concessions and make those points. That's the whole thing about what we did when we passed this ordinance. We all sat and agreed to this a year ago, almost to the day, trying to get us out of where we're at sitting today. Is what we did a year ago. And I mean, I don't want to keep going on, but I have put myself in Ernie's position and I would be more than frustrated with this process. I mean, I've sat and tried to, I feel for you. I mean, this is difficult. So.
Well, so let me just make sure it's in my head right. If you're doing a delay agreement, there's not a time limit when
No.
it has to be done. So
There'll be conditions that
There'd
say
be
this is
conditions.
when it
The
has to
condition
happen.
would be, okay, we decided now we're gonna send a sidewalk down. I'll use the example me and Dave used. The sidewalk's now coming down the Island Road. Eric, it's going right in front of those houses that you developed. Okay, I'm on the hook for installing the sidewalk and the curb and gutter because it's been extended down the Island Road
In front of your lot.
in front of my lots, not
not the whole project.
not the whole project, just those lots that would require it. And even though there's still an empty lot, a blank lot, then I could go back to the city and negotiate and say, well, I got this blank lot. There's nothing in there. Can I do that when I develop a house there?
That one comes in.
When that one comes in, then that way I can still negotiate with the city. Does that help clarify, Mayor?
Yeah, and the other thing is you're in the city limit.
I am, which is, I mean,
Well, this would be if it was annexed.
and if it was annexed, this would be in the city limit.
So that's the question I had, and that's why I made that comment. The easiest road would be annexation.
The
Now, John would have some work to do on the other three lots to get them out of a subdivision, correct?
Well, you'd also have the Lawrence too. I mean, he's part of the subdivision.
That's the third lot I'm talking about.
and
To either get out of the subdivision, like, or sign agreements with Ernie that they'll take care of their portion at the point that they ever develop their vacant lot. Yep, so they'll all be either part of it or they'll abandon them and it'll just be Ernie, but all the standards are there, but they all don't have to be hit tomorrow.
Yes, that's
But we-
the point I wanted to
But,
make.
but staff, myself and like, we can't pre-decide what those conditions are or tell the applicant at this point what concessions we can and can't make. That's the difficult thing. You have to apply and go through that process.
But he can state that, put it on an application, and then we
Yeah,
can,
you can propose all kinds, we can propose all kinds of things, but we can't do that if there's not a city process, right? So just point of clarification, and the ordinance states this, right? And before we didn't have it clarified in code, but the pickleball courts were served by the county's own lateral. They put that line in off of their own master meter. That wasn't a city line, right? So service had already been provided. So that's like saying, hey, can I run another, can I go from the front of my house to the back of my house, or whatever you do with your own lateral? That's the pickleball courts. The Como Springs agreement was in 2019. Annexation was the same conversation, but we don't have a zone that would allow Como Springs to operate. And so a will serve letter was, but they had an existing water system that's failing and it's not being maintained. So it wasn't a matter of like, oh, it's Como, so we want to treat them differently. The same thought process went through, but we didn't also have the ability there. If we annex them, we don't have anything that would allow that to continue. They won't be able to do that zone doesn't exist. That use doesn't exist for us. I told them we could create a zone, we could do all kinds of stuff, but they didn't want to work. But we did say, here's all the city standards. And it's taken them since 2019 to try and design to our standards. We've gone back and forth several times because it's so much more difficult than just putting a pipe in the ground. Like they are hitting all of the city standards, and they currently had sewer service, which also had to be totally redone. Terry Lawrence's was an existing.
That would be number one in our ordinance.
Right. And so what I'm saying is I don't know how far back you go, but we haven't done it at the point of development. And that's what is kind of unique about this.
Terry was done before the ordinance. You remember
But
that?
it also, yes, but it was existing structure previously serviced by another source of culinary water, but subsequently unable to receive that service due to the unavailability of the source.
There was the existing structure.
And he was,
Yeah.
where he was tied onto his culinary water was basically coming to be non-existent.
Mhm. So
John was. So I've got a question. So we go through, I guess I need to know which way I need to go. So if we're gonna talk about annexing two lots and we have an agreement, he does the improvements in front of those lots. Okay. So do we have to get Cam Sargent to sign that agreement to
No.
come past his, or is all that moot? Is that not part of our agreement?
It doesn't have to be. It's nice if the other lot owners say, yeah, I want to be included. But because there's city property on the other side of the street that's contiguous, he doesn't have to be. So they can't also be a barrier, right? But they can be part of the discussion. And,
Okay.
and the,
So-
and the gap in improvements, you're only required to subdivision, whatever's the appropriate impact to that development, right? So the other option there is to say, okay, if we go ahead and do this and we bring the water, sewer and road improvements, and we're gonna do a delayed agreement with them that says if you develop, you have to pay us back because we improved your side of the street, but I don't view that as necessary, but it's also not a roadblock. There's a lot of places that say, hey, I want to annex, but you've got 4 property owners between you and them. And you say, we have to say not until the other 4, like we don't leapfrog and we don't create islands. And so some of those situations, they hold all the cards, but this isn't one of those.
But how do you
Situation.
enforce that? Because years ago, there used to be a substation, right? That Utah Power had a substation where you turn off on the Como Road. There's a substation there. They came and said, we're gonna abandon that substation. So you're gonna have to go to Morgan City for power. And we did, but we weren't in the city. But we went to the city for power. So our agreement was we would pay for the hookup in back of the school to run it through up to our shop, loop it through Red Rock. When Red Rock developed, then they would pay you back for their share, which there's no teeth in that, and that never happens. So I'm just concerned that, if that never developed, what happens?
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, really, he's made his improvements, he's got his lots, everybody's happy. But if that never develops from there down on his side of the road, then nothing ever will happen, right?
Well, other than if that's already a city road and we have ownership of it, then the city would likely participate on that portion. So there'd be proportionate shares,
I see, okay.
right? Because if we do improvements inside the city and it's like, well, that never happened and there's a gap here, but we own the road at whatever point, then we do our own improvements, we do widenings. So it's not that we never do anything, but as much practically as possible, the development pays for all new. But if that's,
So if they never do anything, you decide to improve or widen that road, then you improve and widen the road to where
if it's,
those existing lots.
Yeah. if it's needed, yeah.
Okay.
And all of those situations are just as good as the agreement.
Okay.
So on that payback, just like you said, hey, the nearest sewers so far down there, it's gonna cost me a grundle of money to bring it here. That's your decision, because nobody's forcing anybody to develop. Sure. Right? But if they say, yeah, I'll go grab all of that, but I'm not gonna do it for all of the people on either side of the road, they go do a payback agreement.
So that would be something you would enforce.
And we just did that. So like Jenny Lane, just for example, Jenny Lane went right through some side properties. The subdivision needed that road for access. They put in a whole subdivision. And each one of those lot owners on the side went and said, hey, put in an approach, right? Put an approach onto my property while you're doing it. I don't want to come back and cut your, and they, with the developer, went in individually and made all of their agreements on what improvements you wanted to do. The developer did it, and then they did a payback agreement. They said, okay, we put all this in. You paid for X, Y, and Z, but if you develop tomorrow, you owe me for the road and the sidewalk at whatever the agreement was. And so that's how that works. So if they participate, it's one thing. If they don't, it's another. If you decide, well, I think I'll wait. I don't want to do it. So if sergeants, I'll just wait and see if sergeants do it. That's your choice. If you wait till the other side, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody's forcing anybody to develop in any certain order. Yep. And then you just have to make the agreement the best you can and record it with the property so that it doesn't disappear.
So what would be our first step here? Obviously, we don't want to be in a stalemate here about what we have to do. We don't, here's what we have to do. So where do we start? If your ordinance says if it's recorded subdivision, then I've got to deal with that. That's the number one thing. If that's recorded, even though it's the county, even though it's 40 years old, it's still a subdivision.
It's a recorded
It
subdivision.
was recorded by the county as a subdivision.
The law, it was recorded when we bought it. It was recorded and done as a 5-lot subdivision. However, Lawrence has bought one lot from Como before we did.
Yep. So city, city-wise, you would petition for annexation and we would go through that process to say, here's a list of what we would need. You can decide whether you want to do that as 2 lots or as an entire subdivision before you request. So you probably need to ask the county, what does it take to disband this subdivision? And I would tell them it's no longer, you changed all the rules on subdivision because now it's 1.5 acres.
It is.
This is a 1 acre subdivision. So I would just go say, what's the process to disband this so that they're just individual lots. And then if that's the route you want to go, so you just decide you want to do it as a subdivision, disband the subdivision and do it as individual lots, petition annexation. And through that petition process, then we get with our engineer and we say, here's all the standards, how are they going to be met? And we just work with staff and our engineer to come up with the, the design to move ahead. And otherwise you just do a county process, but like you've already recognized, you go through that process and they're.
Well, I already went to the county and I could do away with the lot, do away with one lot and expand the other lot.
Combine them. Yeah, you could do lot line adjustments.
Do lot line adjustments with the county and that basically
Yep.
does away with that. The 4 lot.
Well, what,
But those are just things, but what I want to do is be able to
facilitate it.
to go here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure just the process I've got to do.
Yeah.
So if that's the first thing before we apply.
And it's a good outcome. I think it's a good conversation to have. It's a little short-sighted to, I think, just provide service and then have all these other lingering issues still out there that need to be solved at some point.
We wouldn't want to.
So I'm just saying, like, even if we.
But I wouldn't want to have some partial thing going on that's going to come down the line and bite me in about 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm,
Be here, but
I guess what I'm saying,
Like
like,
somebody.
but I guess that's what I'm saying though, is like, even if the council agrees and says, okay, go ahead and connect to water, but you're gonna do a county process, I'm not sure that we've solved many of the issues because your septic tank still has to get approved and you're so far within, where sewer is provided or, help, there's still a lot of unknowns. You still have to, you've only answered the water question on a county process, right?
So is
So-
there a process to go ahead and get this going
Yeah, you just request.
before, that isn't going to take another year?
Well, some of that's up to the applicant. It's like Ernie said, we've been working on this for a long time and from his original petition, nothing else came back until, and that's not a fault thing, but I mean, I'm just saying that engineering takes time and reviews take time and that sort of thing. So I really wouldn't be able to give a time frame other than we at least know what direction, we know what we're doing and we just start working towards it.
Okay, so we're actually out of time, but for instructions to John, can we say that he can come in on a work day? And then we can sit down at the table and see what we need to do.
Steve, are we going to spend more time discussing this as an agenda item also? I mean, I've got some, I've got some input or some thought, yeah.
Yeah, but I think what we need to do is just what you're saying, John, is we need to define the rules of how we need to proceed.
Right.
And then take those steps. So with that, would you please call and make an arrangement with us so that we can meet?
Yeah, like to do. I would. I want to get going and
Yes.
it sounds like the best way rather than in a busy meeting.
Well, we want to answer all the questions and we want to figure out all the issues and see if there's a path
Sure.
that leads, the simplest way to take it.
Okay.
That protects the city and protects the landowner in the future.
Yep.
So with that, Ernie, thumbs up if you're okay. Okay. Okay, so we'll adjourn this meeting.
You want me to call direct or do I go through the office? These kind of things are very different. Yes. Yeah.
Then you get some direction.
Oh, no,
But I don't want you to get lost in there. Might be. Oh, it's probably 400 feet.
Hello.
Hey, were you saying that Tony's is?
That's just better than messing with tanks.
Oh, yeah, that.
Really? I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, yeah, we'll do that. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks for the, day what? 11? Wow. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'll give them a holler another time then. Okay. Thanks for the heads up. All right. Thanks for your help. Appreciate it. All right. See you. Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome all those who are attending on Zoom. And this will be the Morgan City Council, January 10th, 2023. Our general meeting. We welcome all the council members and we excuse Tony and say some prayers for him. So I've asked Jeffrey if he'd give us the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Jeff's going to give us the prayer.
Everybody, oh, please stand. Please pledge allegiance after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this evening, Father in heaven, to meet here as a Morgan City Council and discuss things of the city. We're grateful for the opportunity to do so and ask this to be with us as we make decisions that will benefit all citizens here in the city. We're grateful for the valley we have to live here and the freedom we enjoy. We're grateful for the moisture we've received and ask your blessing on all of those that's in the service and our first responders. We're grateful for all them and say these things in the Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve the meeting's agenda?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve tonight's agenda for, what is it, the January 10th?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeffrey, a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Now we'll move on and we'd like to ask, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting? If there's no
Yeah.
changes,
Steve, I've read the minutes and would move to accept the city council meeting minutes of December 13th, 2022, and the warrants of 12/9/2022 to 1/6/23.
I'll second that again.
okay, we have Dave made a motion to approve the city council meeting of December 13th, 2022, and the warrants of 12/9/22 to 1/6/23. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Denise, have we had anybody contact you for comments?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's go into the active agenda. Item A. Amendment to Title 10, Chapter 10-32, Section 10-32 of the Morgan City Code regarding the posting of campaign signs in public right-of-ways. Ordinance 23-01. Is there any discussion?
You know, this appears to be a result of a discussion we've had prior and would reference that. I don't remember the meeting, but certainly reference the discussion as to the reason for the change in a prior meeting if someone needed to look at it.
And it came to us on a positive recommendation
By the council to move forward with the ordinance change.
Is everybody? It's pretty down to earth.
Straightforward. I mean, there's.
Well, it
There's
lined,
not much to discuss.
I think Ty's concern was the difference that we had between, and particularly enforcement between the city ordinance and the county. They didn't line up, and this moves us more in that direction,
Yes,
where counties don't have a lot of sidewalks.
and it does make it easier to find a place to put a sign.
Absolutely.
And not go to jail.
And not go to jail. Okay, does anybody have a motion on this?
Mayor, I'd move to accept ordinance 23-01, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 10.32, Section 10.32.180 of the Morgan City Code regarding the posting of campaign signs in public rights of way, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion by Dave to accept ordinance 23-01 and a second by Jeffrey. Councilmember Wardell,
Aye.
Councilmember Turner, aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Richens,
Aye.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Okay, Denise, that's unanimous. Okay, let's go to the next item. Item B is an amendment to Title I, Chapter 1-15 of the Morgan City Codes by amending the dog licensing fee in consolidated fee, in the consolidated fee schedule, ordinance 23-2. Everybody had I remember discussion on it. I remember Clayton. And so do we have any other discussion on it?
I'd like to throw out just one item, and maybe it's not a big deal, and maybe nobody cares, but rather than use the word fixed and unfixed, I'd propose we use neutered/spayed. And a dog would either be non-neutered/spayed or neutered/spayed, rather than use the word fix.
Fix would be a broad thing, wouldn't it?
I think it's a little bit of a slang term personally. I think the proper term would be the neuter and the spay. Unless anybody has a better medical, I'm sure there's some medical ones that nobody'd understand.
I like it.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
It does sound better.
yeah, well, and fix, okay, I'll go fix my car, you know what?
It is.
Fixing.
Although cut his barking cords out.
Yeah, he's not gonna bark anymore. Wait, I took the cords out. I should get the $10. So Denise, can we make that change at this moment, or do we need to repost it? Okay,
In the motion state.
okay.
So we don't have any discussion on the fees and where they've gone and seems,
I think, I guess Clayton is no longer our man, correct? Do we have a new one?
yes,
Her name is Megan Mattinson. She lives here in Morgan. I think she lives up in North Morgan.
well, I at least saw the dog catcher truck in the driveway over there.
Oh.
Maybe she was doing her job. I don't know, but I think she lives on 100 South.
Oh,
And
okay.
she's been riding around with Clayton for a period of time and learning the ropes, so. And I've met her. She's a real nice gal.
Okay, good.
I'd ask one other question. It looks like we're eliminating duplicate tag. If we need a duplicate, we just buy another one. Is that full price?
The reason why I deleted that out of the consolidated fee schedule was because it wasn't listed in the counties. So we're following the county's fee schedule
good.
for dog
Okay.
licenses now,
Mhm.
and it wasn't in their new fee schedule for the fees.
Yeah, I mean, they're not big amounts, even
I
for new
don't
ones.
really know what Clayton does if somebody requests a duplicate tag.
So a duplicate tag, is it you have to pay that fee or it's just no charge?
Well, now it would be no.
You
no
just buy
charge.
another tag.
No, I think it's no charge.
If you lost a tag, you wouldn't have to pay for another one?
It's at least the way I get it.
That's a good question.
Yeah,
Good
in the
interpretation.
county's ordinance, they don't list, anything for a duplicate tag. It wasn't in the new ordinance that they passed. So I took it out of all.
So if you lost a tag and your pet was picked up, you'd probably have to pay the impound fee. Because the tag wasn't
Mhm.
attached.
But if you
Yeah.
still got your certificate, with
Your
tag,
receipt,
the
maybe?
paper, you can, I'm sure,
Yeah.
prove that your dog's it's licensed and where it needs
Yeah.
to be, so.
Yeah.
I didn't know the tag, I guess, and then it's not on the collar.
Yeah, I had Clayton help me once with a lost tag. I just looked at the collar one day and it was gone. Not sure how or where or when, but I paid the duplicate fee and he mailed it to me.
And that's up to you. I mean, if you guys want to leave the duplicate fee in, you could.
I like the idea of aligning with the county. I think there's value in that.
We should be in step with,
Mhm.
we're in the county.
Yep, consistent.
I agree.
And I guess with that, the county is fixed and unfixed.
Yes, their ordinance.
That's how they.
Oh. We'll tell them to change.
Yeah. That just does sound quite farm-like.
I still like the idea of making it a little more
Yeah.
formal.
Yes, we are.
Are you okay with that, Dave? or do we want to alter that?
Well, I still think we should adjust the wording
Wouldn't
on
make
it.
a difference to the counties.
No.
Okay,
The important part with the alignment with the county in my mind are the fees,
yeah,
which we'd be hooked up with. So Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 23-02, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 1.15 of the Morgan City Code by amending the fees for dog licenses in the consolidated fee schedule, providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Also, changing the word unfixed where noted to, and I think we'll use the word spayed / neutered, but we'll need to put the word non-spayed / neutered. We'll give preference to the female on the gender side. And then replace the word fixed with just the words spayed / neutered.
okay, we have a motion by Dave. On ordinance 23-2. An ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 1-15 of the Morgan City Code by amending the fees for dog licenses in the consolidated fee schedule. Providing for repealer, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. With the change of non-spayed - neutered and spayed - neutered. Instead of unfixed and fixed. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay. We have a motion by Dave and a second by Jeffrey. Councilmember Wardell. Aye. Councilmember Turner.
Aye.
Councilmember Richens.
Aye.
Councilmember Alexander.
Aye.
Okay, Denise, that was unanimous. Okay, so item C. Petition to Morgan City Council for extraterritorial water service.
Say that fast 3 times.
I'm not even sure I got it right. Extraterritorial, is that right? I said that right, Gary?
You
That's
nailed
a
it.
tough one.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Extraterritorial water service. We had a work meeting on this. We had discussion, so everybody's aware if they're on Zoom. And we don't have Ernie here, correct? Okay, so if we go back and read the notes on that, I would like to hear some discussion from the council. Let me first say, we kind of came to a resolve to have John come into to get a list of what he has to line up in order for this to turn into an annexation. Is that kind of what everybody else got? Okay, so is there any more discussion on this or?
Gary, if the petitioner was going that direction with an annexation, what options do we have right now with the petition?
Right now, the petition is not.
Your left, sorry.
So right now, it's not, the petition isn't in accordance with your current ordinance anyway.
Okay.
So what would be is if he came back with a petition for annexation, and that's kind of, I think what he's concluded either as 2 lots or as a subdivision. That's a good way to do it. What Ty mentioned with the annexation agreement or delay agreement for improvements in some areas. But as far as the petition that's before you, I think you've come to the conclusion pretty much that the petition is not in accordance with your current ordinance, the way that it's requested right now. So
So that being said, there isn't any more action that the council needs to take.
I don't believe so, unless
Okay.
you see some other path for winding around the ordinance. I told Ty, I said, we can torture the ordinance all you would like, but we haven't been able to come with it hasn't screamed yet. So, you know, there's no way around it. I don't think we've tried and we've
Mhm.
looked. The best way around it is what the mayor said, which is the annexation of either the two lots or the subdivision. But the petition, the way that it sits, is not in accordance with your ordinance.
So help me to understand this. We don't really need to table it
No,
because
to
we
deny
won't
it.
be changing the ordinance. We'll just be,
Well, it's just,
it'll just come into compliance with the ordinance.
right. So what you could do is one of two things. You're not going to table it because there's no further action that you can take.
Okay.
So either you could deny it, the petition, the way that it sits, or you could just not take any action on it, which would amount to the same thing, pretty much, if you didn't take any action on it. So
I think I'd feel uncomfortable denying it without Ernie being here to discuss. So I would maybe accept or suggest we accept your second suggestion of just no action.
just move to the next item on the agenda. Is what you do.
Okay.
But I think I'm in total agreement with where we were. If we can figure out a way to get it annexed and work so that it protects us inside the city. And if it's 10 years down the road, 50 years down the road, whatever, that we need to work as best we can with every direction out of the city to make it annexation and under that declaration, work with the applicants to make it make sense today and in the future. So I think we need to
So
stick with our ordinance.
I appreciate that comment. Was the very first item was a new mayor. Had no idea what was going on. But since then, for a year, I've been sort of researching it and digging into it and gone through the emotional side of things, which you mentioned in that work meeting. It's a darn hard subject.
Yeah.
But protecting the ordinance, and I've converted in the decision of the council to make this an ordinance and to protect that. But what I like about it is there's a way to protect the city and clean up the borders, which we have some messes on it. Which actually, with others that have sort of petitioned this to happen, if they follow that same footprint, then it can be effective for them also. So that's my input. A year's gone by and I wasn't before when there was the debate and the discussions and everything, but I have come to find out that my job is to follow the council's decision and not to go against it, not to have an emotional outburst so I've learned some in this year, not a lot, but I've learned a little bit. And so, but what I like about it is it's not a closed door. There is still a way that he can come into compliance with the ordinance. Okay.
I just make one comment from last meeting's minutes. We were talking about the difference between two petitions. And again, we've done fair discussion for both in the last two, in this and the previous meeting. But let me read from the minutes. Gary stated there was a current ordinance which didn't allow either petition to be approved. He explained in order to approve this petition, the council would be required to change the ordinance, which would then allow the two applicants and anyone else who petitions for water service to receive the water service. In my mind, our hands are tied. I don't know that we have an ability to go against the ordinance. I think it boils down to if that were to be accepted, we need to change the ordinance and therein, I think that's getting to the root of the problem right there. That and then the second one, who pays for the improvements? We wouldn't want that to be a burden on the city by any means.
Which I've experienced people developing, correct me if I'm wrong, people, when they're developing, they come into a planning meeting and get the ducks lined up. All of this put on paper. Is the word recorded at that point, or at least?
Not recorded, but we have a pre-development meeting. We go through all of the issues, all of the things that we can identify just to give them, you know, we don't approve anything in that meeting, but we just say, here's what we can see that you're looking at, but we don't make any decisions in that meeting, but we help them as a group to say this is what this development would require. And then we give them process. So we tell them if it's just a simple building permit, or if you got to go to planning and zoning process for subdivision or amended subdivision or lot line adjustments, or we just talk around everything that it takes for that applicant. But we don't talk costs.
Right.
And so there's three things. There's one of it is city standards. That's with all of our city staff, our engineer. Then there's process, which is application, maybe planning and zoning and sometimes city council for approval, like annexation would end up coming back to city council. And then there's payment. And all of those things are kind of independent of each other, but at some point they all come together and every one of them has, we just follow as close as possible to whatever ordinances or standards that we have on the books. And so it's not unique. It's just a hard situation because of, a situation that was created in prior years for whatever reason. So, but there's always I don't want to say there's always a path forward. If time, money, and everything else wasn't an issue, there's always a path forward. But I think we're in a pretty good spot. And just for the record or the council's sake, I hope you don't feel like I was trying to convince you of anything in the work session. I was just trying to help you understand the ordinance that we have and the thought process behind that ordinance that we created. And the outcomes of if we chose to go a different direction, in case that if you do read something in the ordinance that you would like to address as a council, that would be the discussion, and nobody's come up with anything better at this point, but I'm not saying it's perfect. That's what we have. So.
Probably one of the most important things that I think as a council you can do is follow your own ordinance. That's your safe area. That's your safety zone.
Safe harbor.
And it doesn't mean you can't change it if you find something that needs to be changed, but you have a safe harbor whenever you follow your own ordinance. And you can tell that if you didn't, then the next person that comes through, you're going to have to figure out how to deal with them in the same way. And you put on a path of having to vary it every single time somebody comes in, but within the ordinance, you're safe. You're not going to get sued.
And Mayor, can I make another comment?
Yeah.
I'd also like to thank you on behalf of the applicants and residents. So even though you said, well, I don't know tons, or I've only been here a year, I don't think anybody should feel that they've ever come to you as the mayor and not had every angle explored, that if there is some possible other solution. And so I just want to publicly thank you for that effort. I have no problem, a staffer on the administrative side being challenged, questioned, because everything should be up to ordinance, and that's kind of where we landed. And so I would just say to you, I wouldn't feel bad about the amount of effort that you've taken on the applicant's behalf to find out if there is not some other avenue. So don't feel bad about your first year. And
I appreciate that.
happy first year, happy anniversary.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah, but the passion in your heart's definitely in the right place, and I look forward to your number two in a similar fashion.
Thank you.
Years 9 and 10 will bring.
I actually know what that is. It's a wooden box with 10 tips up. Already got the box. So Gary, I have a question on item 2 on this. Motion to either approve or deny the petition for extraterritorial water. So if you deny that, or you approve it, so if we deny it, it just stays with the ordinance, correct?
Just stays with the ordinance.
If you approve, then what does that do?
Then you'd be violating the ordinance.
Outside your ordinance.
You'd be outside of the ordinance.
Okay, so the word deny is not a bad word.
Not in this case. no.
Okay.
The other, Mayor,
No, but at the same time, Gary gave us an out too, which was Plan B of not taking any action. It would have a similar legal effect of the same as denying, but I'd prefer not to deny it without Ernie's presence, without him being with us.
So
So-
I think on that one, you could just say mayor something. If I'm wrong, correct me, Gary, but something like we're just gonna take no action on item C on the active agenda.
That would be good. That would be fine.
Okay, so Eric moves to take no action.
We need to vote.
Mayor, can I make another
Yes.
comment? And this isn't to influence any of that, but also recognize that denying the application doesn't preclude the applicant for service under the annexation or some future. So it's not
Not like a zone denial
right.
where you're done for. a
Or
year.
you have to, right, because all we're talking about is the application for extraterritorial service. We're not saying we're not willing to provide water. There's a path to that. So I just want to just clarify that just while we're talking about it before you decide which direction to take. Because I think it's important to know, that, just like you said, deny sounds like a strong word or whatever, but all it is this petition. And this decision doesn't have bearing on other application. If I'm,
Doesn't
if I'm
put a lock on the gate.
Nope.
And if we deny the motion tonight, we haven't done anything. If we don't deny it, we just don't do anything, then we have to open this up again, correct?
No, it has the same effect of denying.
Same effect,
It
okay.
goes away. The legislature often, what they do is just move to the next item on the agenda
Mhm.
and the thing never comes back again.
They run out of time,
Yeah.
whatever.
Just,
So
Just
we
this-
don't even need a motion.
no,
Okay, well,
Just
let me
move-
word this correctly.
move to the next item on the agenda. The mayor can do that. And
Mayor just says I'm gonna move to the next.
Okay,
item on the
yeah, the
agenda.
mayor's gonna move to the next item on the agenda.
You got it.
you're sounding just like a legislator.
Yeah. You're in the wrong spot, Steve.
Get a few years here, we'll move you on to the state.
Oh, yeah, I'll say, I'd really struggle there.
Gray hairs.
So let's move to item 5, city reports and business. First off, is there any council members who has any reports for the council?
I don't have a report, but I just want to say kudos to the staff for all the effort that they've been putting in recently with our snow and our
Power outage.
and our
that-
power outage and,
Outside of our control.
yes, and I appreciate Ty so much by sending us out and keeping us notified. I appreciate that so much. I was able to at least give a few people a heads up that it was coming. And so I appreciate you, Ty. Thank you for keeping us updated. Thank you for keeping us in the loop so that when people ask us, we know what's going on. So you're not sitting there going, I don't have a clue. So kudos to Ty, kudos to the staff for all that they've done. I mean, I sat and watched during that one snowstorm, the whatever the issue was with the power line. I watched the arc and spark and it was kind of impressive, but they were within just a few minutes, they're taking care of the issue. So I just want to compliment them and all that they've done. So I just want to do that publicly in this meeting.
Thank you. We kind of wonder what the council's gonna get asked about, but when it's something on a Sunday, we know you're gonna get asked.
Two.
Hey, but church was canceled, so
It was a plus. Yeah. Anyway, at least I had the answer during, when the power went off during the Rose
Yes.
Bowl, so.
no kidding.
Thank you, Eric. I think that's very fitting. I sure appreciate the update. Anything? Want to give us a rundown on your hand there, Jeff? You gonna make it through?
Good maker. Yep,
It was a success.
that was, well, supposedly. That's what you pay that doctor to do. huh?
You don't know till you unwrap it.
No.
Okay, let's move on, Ty. Your project updates.
Sounds good at 7:30, so we'll get out of here by 10 for sure.
Doing that to us.
Yeah, Gary's excused at any point because,
Gary won't be here.
Yeah.
no, no, it's just,
Ice skates.
no, it's just kind of what happens when we miss a meeting, right? Just some of the updates pile up. So one is, just kind of a straw poll on, if you've heard any feedback on just doing the one free dump pass so that we renew that every year. We've just been doing one on any time during the year. So every resident gets one. Last year we gave out 245 passes. The year before 195, the year before 193. So we're right there at the about a little increase last year, but hopefully it keeps our city clean and
And the county does the same.
yep,
They
we're
give-
consistent
they
with the
give out
county.
one.
Everybody gets
Okay.
one regardless of where you get it. So let me know if you feel different. But that's-
No,
we just
keep
plan on-
going.
That's a great,
I love it, because then you can kind of do it on your time rather than the way we used to do it. So keep going, Ty, in my opinion.
Sounds good. Okay, project updates. The train depot is almost finished. We just have a couple of just pending items, but had to get a new heater in there, a new HVAC system to keep it warm and keep the pipes from freezing. We had an internal flood and stuff like that. But anyway, the occupancy side of that's just about done. So
Hey, can I ask a quick question about that train depot?
Mhm.
There's a big enough room in there that somebody could have a small meeting in there? I mean, how many occupants do you think you could get in that meeting room? Do you know on the occupancy permit, Ty? Sorry, that's a,
so the meeting room would probably accommodate about 10.
okay,
If, you know, depending on the size of the table or whatnot that goes in there. So that's where the luggage room used to be.
okay. Would,
So, and maybe two offices, like two cubicles in the middle where the ticket counter is.
if somebody wanted to rent out that meeting room, is that a possibility?
Not right now, because we don't have a
Well, when it's,
schedule, but that's kind of the,
it would go into our fee schedule, maybe.
yeah, if that's a potential use. So as we work through the other grant that we just got for the occupancy of it to make it a visitor center, that was kind of written into that grant as a potential use, but depending on who occupies it, and how much space they use,
Oh, okay.
you know what I mean? So
Gotcha.
depending on how that works, there may not be that space left. You know, if we're running a gift shop out of the front, it might be shelving and storage and stuff. And so I'm open to ideas and discussions. The planning commission is our advisory board on that grant. So I'm just starting conversations right now, and if you'd like to be included in any of those conversations or, you know, get updates, and, you know, that'd be welcome, you know what I mean? So
What was the Zoom meeting we were at? There's been so many Zoom meetings lately, but they show the town with similar station, and they build a little park there.
that was your land, your plan.
Yeah,
And
and had like 20,000 people visit that site to watch a train go by. So it could be a draw for Commercial Street.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Well, in the caboose, right? So part of that grant's also to redo the caboose, and then we do have some property right there. But so the mayor's saying they developed a little fenced off park right in front of the train tracks that had a Bowery of sorts,
Bowery and
and
then a picnic table and.
just a place to come watch trains. go by.
But it brought 20,000 people to that little town.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's a lot of people. Big cameras.
So other project updates, we just had the pre-construction meeting for the bridge today, so the date on that contract is August 11th, but substantial completion is in July. And so we learned that substantial completions means a open functioning bridge.
By July of this year?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Oh, bless you.
So,
Yeah, that's the best news I've heard.
well, but that's why we had that bonding hurry up, is so that we could,
Oh,
you know, because the contract went out, it went to bid, all that's been awarded, and so starting at the end of this month is the 23rd is the start, you know, that's the time clock, or that's when the project actually starts. So some groundwork, some,
Snowplow.
you know,
they'll do it.
we'll start working. We still have some utilities to get out of the way for them, but anyway, they can start ordering materials, the biggest part of that kickoff.
State handles the bidding and the contracting.
Yep,
It's
yep.
out of
So
our hands.
yep, they do all of, so we have a construction management company that keeps the contractor to the design standards and all of the billing and all the record keeping for the federal dollars and all of that. So that we have a project manager essentially that'll handle that. And then Lance and I will be in weekly meetings throughout the whole project.
When do you expect your grant money, the new award that you talked about?
So we don't know. So it was just included in the federal budget. I'll go ahead and mention that now that we got an extra, or we got the $2 million that we requested through Senator Moore's office in the new federal budget, but I don't know time frame. I don't know agency. So it could come through UDOT. It could come from Wasatch Front Regional Council. It could come to us directly. I don't know if there's going to be any additional parameters put on it. You know what I mean? Or timing. I don't know any of that yet.
Wouldn't be more than a year though, would it?
No, it would be in this budget year.
This budget year.
Kudos, Ty.
Yeah. Well, no, and the staff, I mean, Denise filled out the original application, what we tried 2 years ago. The last 2 years we've tried.
Kudos to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I must admit that
Man.
Yeah. And, you know, thanks to Senator Moore and his office
Yes.
for recognizing the value, because we competed regionally, you know, in his whole district. We got ranked and we got put in the top 10 of all of the projects that they considered, and the significance of that project to us was considered. So if you think about it, if you're an elected official with that big of a region, we're kind of a small community, and so
What kind of a thank you would we express?
I think a letter, I think the mayor was gonna wanna draft a letter, and we can do that formally. You know, some sort of a
I was gonna
recognition or.
say, he has a monthly mayor meeting,
Mhm.
as busy as he is, and it's usually a Zoom thing. But he hadn't forgot from a year ago that he made a statement that you guys really need that bridge.
Yeah.
And it's, so I'm proud of him. For a small town and all
Yeah.
kinds of, you know, give me this, give me that goes around on his district, and he's really done us well.
Yeah, so we have So we have about $1 million left on the bridge that will approach the COG and see if the COG won't dedicate the local option sales tax to that portion of the match. So we're pretty happy about that. And then the bond that we do have will cover any gaps in timing.
No penalty for paying it down early.
No, but the first year's payment isn't a full payment. So we'll wait till the whole project's finished and then,
Paying it down.
yeah, and then we'll also have we'll have another budget cycle before we decide if that's something that we want to draw on and do some other projects and make payments, or if we just want to pay it back. And we'll kind of look at what interest rates are doing at the time too. You know what I mean? If it's
Not feasible.
or if it's earning as much interest as
Arbitrage.
is it? Yeah, so anyway, we've at least put us in, we had 3 options or 3 strategies on the bridge, and so far option A is coming to fruition, so we're pretty excited about that. So we got a, oh, yeah.
Before I do that, who needed $2 million for the wine. Oh, is that right?
Well, needs a funny word. You know,
That's awesome.
Sorry, Gary.
Get out of here.
Watch the ice. Temperature's dropping. There was like 4 wrecks in that canyon yesterday. So be careful. Thank you.
that's funny. So PHP, we got a rebate. So $3,241 back. Here's the explanation of the program if you're interested, but it basically means we're like membership in a nonprofit, and you know, the better we do, the lower costs are. And so,
Is that specific to us or is it the group in general? The whole group?
yeah.
So everybody has to do good in order to get the rebate.
Mhm. Yeah. But I would say we are contributing
We do our share.
our share, yeah. And that's off of our premium. And it's a little different than a local government's trust where we do the safety program and we get money back there, and that's our liability insurance, not our health insurance. So but that helps offset the increase in, you know, health insurance costs that we saw last budget cycle. So that's good. Still working on the water rate and impact fee study. Just wanted to make you aware that that's still in the works. We don't have anything.
Is that
I
a
can't.
outside company that helps us with that?
Yep.
You've
Yep.
already contracted with them?
Yeah, so our engineers have finished the capital facilities plan that's required to go into the rate study. And then Zion's Public Finance is completing the study for us to make sure that our impact fees are appropriate for future costs.
Okay.
You know, just to.
What about just water rates in general?
That's part of it.
Okay, we decided we needed some.
Yep.
help there.
Yep, so that's looking at our current operational costs plus current issues that we have going on. So,
Compare that to revenue.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're probably a couple of months out on that still.
yeah, I would hope maybe in February, end of February would have that done. I think they have all the information now that they need, so we'll look forward to that. UAMPS update, so the carbon-free power project just did a amended budget and plan of finance for the project. They voted to go another year. They changed the terms of the agreement that we have with NuScale, which provides us an off ramp. We can reduce, withdraw our entitlement share. And that's due in by February 17th, whatever our decision is. The groups decided to give it another year. They included subscription as part of the 100% reimbursement. So basically, at the end of the next year, we still incur a lot more costs as a group but, if the economics don't come back or there's not enough subscription, then the group has a opportunity to withdraw. New Scale basically buys us out of the project and they can do whatever they want, like go to a different,
They have the ability to do that, I suppose.
yeah. Yep. So it's,
Subscriptions haven't really taken off though
Nope.
recently.
Nope.
So that's a little bit of a concern.
yep, it's a huge concern, and that was our concern going forward. I'm still attending meetings and trying to get our cost breakdown, our options, and another thing I'm exploring to see if there's another entity in the project that would like to assume our portion of that project. So that it doesn't cost us to get out, but if somebody else is looking to increase
There,
theirs, then
Sure.
that could be another option that we haven't considered, and so. I'd at least like to propose those before we put it on our agenda.
we'll need to decide before the middle of February.
Mhm. Yep. So anyway, if you have any specific questions or want to attend in any of the, project meetings, it's been a healthy discussion. A lot more participation in the discussion, those sort of things, and we're also looking at some alternatives inside the city. So we're looking at some potentially natural gas generating facility inside the city. Clark and I are going to Caterpillar in Tucson tomorrow to look at some options there, combined with microgrid controller, that would take heavy load and rebalance it. So with electric vehicles and a lot of the other stuff that our system's dealing with, we're looking at those options as well. So it's a disruptive time in the world of power.
It just seemed like it gets more so.
Yep.
As time goes on.
Yep.
Costs going on.
Yeah, and that was one of the things with the project too. One of the biggest risks to the project was the interest rates, because it's so heavily financed. That changes. Inflation changes as well. We're talking to DOE. So that's the other thing over the next year is renegotiating with the Department of Energy on their commitment and basically saying, what else are we gonna do if we're trying to hit all of these new requirements? You gotta kind of be involved and help us out here. So anyway, I just wanted to at least let you know that was the discussion and that's where we're at. So in one of the future meetings, we'll have a decision point. At this point, I don't have a recommendation. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
But basically our decision will be, we can get that, we can do that when we get there. So just some grants. We got notice that we did not get the Bureau of Reclamation grant for the water tank. That was for 3 million. And so I have the letter here from the Division of Water Resources. We had an application there for the match money. That would all be loan. We didn't have anything committed on that side. But I'm planning on just withdrawing our application. Without the 3 million in grant, it doesn't make financial sense to loan 6 million instead of 3. So Kel's taking another look at the water tank just to see, what we can do to buy time. Capacity we won't get unless we build a new tank. But as far as rehabbing and maybe doing some minimal work on the treatment building and that, we'll look at just what we can do right now without, breaking the bank,
Yeah,
basically.
it's a good approach.
Yeah, and then,
Good work.
and then the future future opportunity comes up, we'll look at it, and hopefully by then we'll have some impact fees towards it, kind of set aside depending on how development goes and what that new rate looks like. So anyway, maybe good news. It,
Yeah, time will tell.
yeah, I don't know, things work out for a reason. I like to be an optimist. And then we did apply for a TLC grant and a TPA grant, Transportation Land Use Connection Grant, and a Technical Planning Assistance Grant. Those are both planning grants. Each one was, we asked for 70,000 and it's 85. With the match, it would be an $85,000 project each one. The Transportation Land Use Connection would be for our trails and parks master plan to kind of piggyback on the general plan that we're hoping wraps up here soon. Kind of piggyback on that. And then the Technical Planning Assistance Grant would be more for a downtown plan, also to piggyback on, you know, the anticipated new general plan where we have a couple different zone options that or land uses that we haven't considered before. So just to help us take that next step on, okay, now the general plan says this, you know, what do we do with that information? And so those are really good or really low match requirements. And so we put in 2 of those just to make you aware. And then I did let you know that we received the Rural Opportunities Grant. That's $455,000. And our match is $195,000. We had budgeted $200,000 already on that project. And so based on timing and work, we do have the funds available in the budget to do as much work as we can in this current budget year on those 5 projects. So
It'll be used for what? What are the projects?
so there's 5 different components of it. Oh, and I should mention that we were only one of 4 that got their full request on that application. We got some compliments on the project, so we were pretty happy about that. But one is to turn the visitor center or the train depot into a visitor center and have somebody occupy it and operate it as a visitor center. So we have some meetings, you know, just to kind of explore who that might be and if anybody's interested. And another one is to turn the train depot into an attraction. So maybe a self-guided tour or just some improvements around there with some educational, you know, stuff about railroad and our history. The other one is that's 2. The third one is to promote our historic district designation. So Morgan City received a historic district designation from the National Park Service. So that'll be signage and promotional material and education to building owners, that sort of thing. Which would be pretty cool if we could put plaques and stuff on some of the significant buildings and homes.
We have a new historical leader.
Not that I know of, not yet. I know they were going through the hiring process, but I haven't heard. And so then the last one is an event trailer. So either a box trailer that will support our community events. Everything will be either in there or a new stage, a mobile stage that's a little easier to set up. We're kind of exploring the cost options.
Whose do you use now? How do you?
That's the city. The city owns a stage. It comes in a trailer, but it takes 3 or 4 guys, several hours to set up. It's not terrible, but if you're on a flat piece of ground, it's a lot easier than on a crowned road. Because it's just really difficult to level. We extend the legs fully on one side. You know, the adjustability is a little more difficult. So if we get a better option, we will probably want to just surplus that and recoup some of the costs from that. And then the last project is to create or help incentivize the creation of event space. So in Morgan, we don't really have any event space. And that's something that needs to be talked through. We need to come up with parameters or proposals. So I'll probably be working with the Planning Commission on what to include in that grant, whether to break it up, either do 1 grant or 2 grants, or maybe even 3 small grants. Kind of like what we've done with the RDA, where we've been help people. It's really risky to do event space without knowing what the market or support is for that. So,
It's risky when you do know what it is.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, that, those are the 5 projects associated with that grant. So we'll get to work on it. We're pretty excited to
How long do you have to spend it?
2 years. Yep.
Should it be too hard? to
Oh,
spend?
I've heard I'm pretty good about spending money. So, I think that's all my updates. Everybody still awake? It's before 10.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice job. Good work, Ty.
Thank you.
You've been busy.
And we have a great staff. I did look back and look at just my calendar. Last year was incredible. The depth and scope of the things, that we've been involved in, and some pretty significant, just on the power side alone, that's been a lot. So Clark and I have tag teamed a lot of meetings, and we've restructured our water and sewer departments, and they're getting themselves trained. So it's coming along. Just appreciate the support.
I've been impressed with this city. Yeah, took a lot of things for granted. I'll tell you, for a lot of years, but I just will share with you if there's a resident that has a big complaint or that is kind of knocking our city. I defend the city by asking them if they had a hot shower. And if their light switch worked. Their toilet flushed.
Exactly.
So,
Is this what?
okay, any more,
Way
any more discussion? If not, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Good meeting.